Hey guys, this is going to be a little different. I was just perusing the webs like I do, and I came across a video. I've seen it before, and it's a recommendation, and I want to reiterate it. This is from Quinn. This is about a book series called The Three Body Problem, and I really recommend this to anyone who loves science fiction. I know I'm speaking to a couple of you specifically. If you love science fiction with big ideas, this is it.
Hi guys, it's me Quinn, and as always, if you appreciate my content, consider hitting the like button. It's the only way the YouTube algorithm really notices me. Recently, I had the pleasure of reading what is likely the most terrifying science fiction book series I've ever read. I've always enjoyed scary stories. As a kid, I read anthologies like Goosebumps or Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. But I didn't know true fear until I encountered the works of Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft in my teenage years. Lovecraft's work opened up such terrifying vistas of thought that I would, while reading them, become transfixed and filled with ultimate existential dread. The cosmic terrors he wrote about in his stories struck me as somehow realer than the monsters and ghosts of Goosebumps, and that is probably because Lovecraft, in truth, being the flawed man he was expressing a very simple fear. The fear of the unknown. And what is more unknown than the blackness of space? I must admit that not since my early teenage years have I felt such poignant terror while reading as I did when first encountering the work of Lovecraft. That is, until I read the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy. There are 3 books in this series: The Three Body Problem, The Dark Forest, and Death's Sinned. There is also an additional book, not written by Sixton Law himself, called Redemption of Time. The first book in the series, The Three Body Problem, starts off as a mystery. As the story unfolds, it starts to feel as though we are reading the unfolding of some grand conspiracy.
It's also worth pointing out that this author is a Chinese author, and the vast majority of the characters in this book and in the series are Chinese. This is also a loose interpretation put in a science fiction universe of the history of China. The very start of it starts off in the revolution in the 1940s and 50s, when the communists took over. It's quite thorough, quite good.
A conspiracy written into the fabric of the universe itself. Early on in the story, you find out that scientists around the world have been killing themselves. A note left behind by one of the late scientists, Yang Dong, ominously adds to the mysteries, saying only, "All the evidence points to a single conclusion. Physics has never existed and will never exist. I know what I'm doing is irresponsible, but I have no choice." We base so much of our own perception of what we consider to be reality on what we can observe. We look upon the universe and extrapolate from that point. But what if we will never be able to know the truth about the universe? What if the universal constants are not constant? What if the laws of physics are not laws? What if reality isn't real?
And this series explores those ideas in a way that I have never heard done before, seen done before in American science fiction.
Before we get any further into the video, I have to give a spoiler warning. If you have not read this series, I highly recommend you stop this video and do so. If you've read the series or just don't care about spoilers, then continue forth.
He doesn't spoil very much here. The story is so deep. The ideas are so incredibly grand that what he tells you in this is a drop in the ocean. I cannot stress that enough. And even Quinn points that out at the end. Quinn's fantastic, by the way. I love his channel.
Now, we won't be getting into all of the details of this series, but I will be giving context on why exactly I think it's so unnerving. Ultimately, the secret of the first book is this: we are not alone in the universe. We are not alone in the Milky Way. Just 4 light years from our own solar system lives another species. They have heard the call of Earth from the vacuum of space. And because their own world is unstable in a constant state of varying extremes due to the three-sun structure of their solar system. They have chosen Earth as their new home.
And as Quinn will go into, as the books go into, we've been broadcasting our signals out into space, as everybody watching this knows. The movie Contact is a great representation of that. How they had the bad guy from World War II was legitimately the first person on television.
They intend to exterminate the human race, like bugs. Though their technology is great, due to the great distance of space, it will take the aliens, named the Trisolarians, 400 years to arrive on Earth. But in the meantime, through technology involving quantum entanglement, they were able to stifle the progress of human scientific development. Scientific theories based on humanity's current understanding of physics were rendered useless. The Trisolarians had led humankind into a trap, and the trap had snapped closed, leaving humanity as a helpless victim, only capable of waiting until the predator arrived to claim its prey. Everything that humankind did was monitored in real time by the Trisolarians, as their fleet made its way from their homeworld to the world of Earth.
How things were monitored by the Trisolarians, he doesn't spoil it here, and I certainly won't, is incredible. The ideas in this are out there.
Nothing could be concealed from them save the thoughts hidden away within the individual human minds. For a while, the world struggles to adjust, attempting to find solutions. It was briefly considered that a portion of the human species might be sent off into the vacuum of space on generational ships. Escapism would have had three potential goals. The first option would be finding a new world among the stars where humanity could survive. This would have been the most ideal option. The next option would be a starship civilization, its citizens aboard an eternal voyage. The third option would have been for humanity to take temporary refuge among the stars. They would hope to return after Trisolaris had settled in the solar system and attempt to coexist with the aliens.
As the story unfolds, that becomes clear that that probably wouldn't have been an option.
But escapism could never truly happen. Not because humanity's technology couldn't potentially reach the level sufficient enough to allow it, but because human nature would prevent it from ever getting off the ground. It is simply a matter of who is allowed to leave, and who is condemned to face the wrath of the Trisolarians on Earth. No matter who got to leave, whether they be elite or poor, humankind's fundamental value system would ultimately collapse, for the idea of equality would be utterly shattered. Human rights and equality have deep roots. Inequality of survival is the worst sort of inequality, and the people and countries left behind will never just sit and wait for death while others have a way out. There will be increasingly extreme confrontations between the two sides until there's world chaos, and then no one goes.
Endless chaos. You know that's exactly what would happen if there was an escapist type thing. Humanity would fight amongst themselves to get on the ship. The view of humanity in this is very real. It's not fantasy. Humanity is seen as what it legitimately is and can become.
The United Nations, realizing this simple fact, overwhelmingly voted to ban escapism, instead choosing to focus on what they could do from Earth to thwart the Trisolarians, including the formation of a space force. Even with everything the world leaders attempted in order to maintain stability, eventually society did collapse in an apocalyptic testing event known as the Great Ravine. During the Great Ravine, the Space Force was brought to the brink of collapse. Inflation skyrocketed, credit systems unraveled. It started with the slow economic transformation that often accompanied wartime. The standard of living declined, and the political climate grew more and more intense. But instead of it just being one or a few countries, it was the entire Earth. Society was on edge, and if you said something wrong, they would say you were ETO, or a traitor to humanity. So nobody felt safe, and film and television from the Golden Age began to be restricted, and then was banned worldwide.
You could absolutely see governments locking down themselves, their countries, their borders, their social media, their media altogether, even human interaction. It's all about control.
But eventually, things got even worse. Humanity began to starve. Climate change had already been greatly accelerating. With the coming of the Trisolarian crisis, humanity grew pessimistic. Even if they saved the Earth, made it into Eden come again, it would be an Eden for the Trisolarians, not them. Only the Space Force was given thought, and its continued development only further polluted the Earth. So climate change accelerated, The environment changed. The temperature raised. Forest and plains became desert. The process of desertification had not been subtle or gradual. The green of the earth had eroded simultaneously like a damp towel left out to dry in the sun. Food production halted, for there was no grain being grown. And for the next 50 years, the planet was famished. The population of the earth decreased by 5 billion during those years, all while the Trisolarian fleet marched on steadily. One of the most intriguing things about these books, mainly the second book, The Dark Forest, is how they show the effect that the imminent Trisolarian invasion has on humanity before the aliens even arrive within the solar system.
Which I think is absolutely true. You would have a situation probably very similar as described in these books, just because of the nature of humanity. We've preyed on ourselves for so long, why stop now?
Initially, many people denied that the invasion was truly real. Once the truth became widely accepted, a sense of dread crept over all mankind. Religions had to change to make way for the existence of extraterrestrials. Humanity could no longer hide behind the comforting fantasy of our own uniqueness. We were not unique. We were one of the potentially endless civilizations out there in the dark.
Now this, to me, is one of the most terrifying concepts in science fiction. It makes so much sense on a logical point of view. What is the Dark Forest? He's going to go into it. This is what brought me into the series. When I heard this explanation, I had to listen. And I spent hours on Audible listening to these books. The Dark Forest.
The scariest part of this book series, in my opinion, is also in the second book, The Dark Forest. In this book, we begin to unravel the truth about the state of life in the universe. The book calls us to consider cosmic sociology. If you supposed that a vast amount of civilizations were distributed throughout the universe based on the number of detectable stars, those civilizations would make up the body of cosmic sociology. Cosmic sociology is based on two axioms. First, survival is the primary need of civilization. Second, civilization continuously grows and expands, but the total number of matter in the universe remains constant. These two axioms are all that is needed to extrapolate the ultimate horrifying truth about cosmic society. It is a secret that the Trisolarians themselves knew, and called the most important secret in the universe. It was the secret that the universe itself was a dark forest. The universe is a dark forest. Every civilization an armed hunter stalking through the trees like a ghost, gently pushing aside branches that block the path and trying to tread without sound. Even breathing is done with care. The hunter has to be careful because everywhere in the forest are stealthy hunters like him. If he finds other life, another hunter, an angel or a demon, a delicate infant or a tottering old man, a fairy or a demigod, there is only one thing he can do: open fire and eliminate them. In this forest, hell is other people, an eternal threat that any life that exposes its own existence will be swiftly wiped out. This is the picture of cosmic civilization. It's the explanation for the Fermi paradox.
Survival of the fittest. Kill or be killed. It's the oldest rule in nature. Why would it be different off this planet?
The famous Fermi paradox, of course, brings up the quandary. If based on what we know about the universe, it should be full of life, then where is said life? Why is the universe seemingly silent? This series provides a single terrifying answer. We don't see them because they are hiding. Like all life on Earth, life in the universe must compete to survive. It is a cruel fact about the nature of life itself. If the location of a world is revealed, it is marked in a way. A metaphorical spotlight is shown upon it, a blinking sign stating, "There is intelligent life here. Destroy it before it destroys you." Eventually the mark will be noticed. It is only a matter of time. It doesn't matter what motivated someone to leave the mark. What's important is that the dead hand has stretched the nerves of the dark forest to the breaking point, and it's the most sensitive nerve that's most liable to make a move. Suppose there are 1,000,000 hunters in the forest. The number of civilizations on the billions upon billions of stars in the Milky Way could be thousands of times that. Perhaps 900,000 of them will disregard the marking. Of the remaining 100,000, maybe 99,000 of them will probe the location, and after confirming that it has no life, disregard it. but one of the remaining 10,000 hunters will surely make the choice to fire on that position. Because for civilizations at a certain level of technological development, attacking may be safer and less of a hassle than probing. If there's really nothing at that location, then there's no loss.
You don't even deal with it. You find out they exist, you take them out. Kill or be killed. In a universe where it would literally be kill or be killed. Survival of the fittest. And there's one more equation that he's going to throw in here that I hadn't thought of, but is extremely relevant.
The idea that the universe could be a dark forest strikes fear into my very core. Humans have always seemed to be fascinated with the idea of extraterrestrial life, making contact. For more than 100 years, we have blasted the sky with signals, sending pieces of our world out onto the cosmos in the form of waves, never thinking about exactly who might be listening. Though humans have revealed themselves to the Trisolarans, who only wanted to colonize the Earth for themselves, there were things far worse and far more powerful than the Trisolarans. Ancient civilizations were shielded in the dark and armed with the power to rip apart dimensions. Another fascinating and also quite troubling concept Sixenlil forces us to consider in his books is the potential effect that life has had upon the universe itself. Without life, the Earth would be a different planet. There would be no oceans, no rivers. The entire surface of the planet would be as dry as Mars. Life is not some tiny shell clinging to the surface of the world, fragile waiting to be snuffed out in an instant. Life, with the aid of time, is powerful enough to move mountains. And without life, it is very possible that by what we now consider to be the modern era, liquid water would not exist on planet Earth. Plants, animals, and bacteria all have had important roles in the present composition of our atmosphere. Without life, the atmosphere would be very different. It's possible that such an atmosphere would not be able to shield the surface of the Earth against solar winds and ultraviolet rays. And the oceans would evaporate. Soon, greenhouse effects would turn the Earth's atmosphere into a copy of Venus's, and then water vapor would be lost to space over time. After several billion years, the Earth would be dry. The Earth that we and all other life on this planet inhabit is ultimately a home constructed by life for itself. If we take this idea and apply it to the universe itself, then this thought occurs.
I think that's a wonderful mindset. Earth is a creation of life for itself. That's a great philosophy. It's almost inspiring in a way. But this is a horror science fiction.
If life has had such a drastic effect on the Earth, then what effect has life as a whole had on the universe itself? And what would the universe look like without life? If life was exceedingly rare in the universe, its impact on the evolution of the cosmos could be ignored. But if the universe was in fact teeming with life, as the famous Drake equation suggests, then a terrifying question arises. How much has the universe from its original state been altered by life? Is the nature that we experience natural at all? A terrifying revelation comes near the end of the final book in the series, Death's End. The universe had once been 10-dimensional, a state of perfection, but due to the destructive nature of life itself, those dimensions have collapsed, and the universe will continue to collapse until only a single dimension remained. Countless ancient civilizations potentially possess the capability of initiating dimension collapses in parts of the universe. It was one of the methods that hunters in the Dark Forest used to eliminate other intelligent species. The problem was that once a dimension strike occurred, it never ended. The universe itself was dying, drying up in patchwork formation as the Earth had done during the Great Ravine. The endless cosmic darkness that we saw as the universe today had been the result of the endless battles of the Dark Forest, and we as humans would never know the true beauty and perfection of the original cosmos.
Hell of a thought. That species can evolve to the point of dimension collapse. And that is explored in this book, in these books, as well as a number of other theories. And he's about to hit with one more.
Aside from pure existential dread, this series has so many great science fiction ideas that I just love, such as the idea of cryogenics. The philosophy behind people being willing to freeze themselves in the present in order to wake up in the future is based on a very human but often not true assumption. that the future will somehow be better than now. Many of the characters throughout this book series experience being frozen and unthawed in a different era. I find it fascinating to read about how someone from a specific era interacts with the world and the people of a new era. This idea is also at the heart of one of my all-time favorite science fiction shows, the lighthearted animation show, Futurama, whose main character, after being frozen for 1,000 years, wakes up in the year 3000 and has to deal with the fact that not only is he living in a world completely alien to him, but also everyone that he's ever known is dead.
In the series, the people who... I don't want to give too much away. The people who are tasked with finding solutions are routinely cryogenically frozen and thawed. And to explore that as just a mental state for humanity is incredible. And they do go into it in the book. The reason why is fantastic.
Cixin-Lu's use of the concept of this helped to illustrate the idea that humans are humans even when coming from a different era. Cixin-Lu throughout this series also explores the concept of the long view of history. He explores how certain events and figures throughout human history evolve in the way they are perceived by humanity. Men become gods, gods become devils, heroes become villains, and vice versa. We see this mainly with the characters Luo Ji and Shangxin as their stories progress throughout the centuries, and also the inhabitants of the ships Blue Space and Gravity, who at certain points in history considered to be the enemies of all mankind, and at other points take on near mythic proportions in the mind of some humans, all due to the varying perspectives created by the different vantage points of time. On the whole, humanity seems to possess fleeting short-term memories, and ideas that aren't constantly reinforced instantly fade away in the midst of time. This is the reason that humanity seems to constantly repeat its old mistakes. We as a species simply forget.
Which can be said for so many aspects about human civilization. I have long said we are a species with amnesia. I don't think history started 3,000 years before Christ with the Egyptians. After listening to Graham Hancock and going down these rabbit holes with Randall Carlson about pre-existing civilizations, I'm convinced that we are a species with amnesia, and that we, as a species, have had a civilization on this planet prior. And I do mean planet. A planetary species with planetary interaction.
Some would say that Cixin-Lu's trilogy is a quite pessimistic one, and I have to agree to an extent. Cixin-Lu does seem to present a pretty pessimistic view of human nature as a whole. Though certain individuals can sometimes come up with solutions that could potentially help, the human entity as a whole for some reason resist. It is easy to see the Trisolaran crisis in particular as a metaphor for climate change. Destruction is imminent, perhaps.
This is one part where I do disagree with Quinn. It's not a metaphor for climate change. Almost everything in the book is a metaphor for Chinese history in one form or another. Even the author has said so.
Distant but certain, and it's likely that modern humans won't be affected nearly as much as the generations to come after. Can humankind come together to stop this crisis and ensure the survival of its future generations? One of the most interesting parts of the series is when we get to see how the various governments cooperate when it comes to dealing with the crisis in the beginning. At some point, the book mentions that there was a push for socialized technology, which would have given the human race as a whole a greatly increased chance of survival. The major world powers flat out rejected this notion because they believed it would weaken them. Not even the sure threat of alien annihilation was enough to force the world to cooperate.
Could you see governments doing everything they could to hold on to their power? Golly gee, I don't know.
The US government said that no form of socialized technology was realistic, that it was a naive idea, and that under the present circumstances, US national security was a priority, second only to planetary defense. I would say that humankind as a whole is depicted as being rather selfish in this series, and many times we see how the species cannibalizes itself. Humanity is often its own greatest hindrance. The books are not all pessimism, however. The final book in the series, Death's Sin, does in fact end with certain optimistic undertones by highlighting the endurance of the human race and its spirit. Cixin-Lu combines philosophy, science, and pure horror to create what is honestly one of the best science fiction book series I've ever read. The series is endlessly bold and unpredictable. Even the spoilers I've mentioned in this video barely begin to get to the place where these books eventually go.
That's an understatement. Again, these books are so far out there with such big ideas that are so fascinatingly incredible. If you're reading it, you can't put it down. If you're listening to it, you can't stop.
Third book, Death's Sin, gets more into the idea of the interdimensionality of the universe, which is endlessly intriguing and quite trippy actually. The series feels boundless in a way that a lot of other books just don't. The questions about humanity, about the universe that are brought up in this series are questions that I've been pondering since I read it a few months ago. The books aren't scary in the traditional sense, but the ideas it explores are chilling to the bone. The Remembrance of Earth's Past is science fiction at its best, and I hope to cover more of the series and explore some of its other concepts in future videos. Thanks so much for watching, guys.
And that's from Quinn's ideas, and what we're going to do here, because Quinn is awesome, we're going to give him a subscribe and a like, because this video is fantastic. The book series is unreal. I can't tell you how enthralled I was at every twist and turn of this series. It explores ideas that are so grand in scale that it's awe-inspiring. Physics ideas that are just wild. If you are a true fan of science fiction, one, go to Quinn's Ideas and you make sure to hit a subscribe and like on his videos. He's fantastic. Two, you go to Audible or you go to your bookstore or Kindle and download or buy The Three-Body Problem, The Dark Forest, and Death's End. You won't regret it. Thank you for watching, and I do appreciate you. We'll see you again.